Good morning. Welcome to Legal Access, brought to you by the McGuire Law Firm. And here on our panel today to answer your questions about personal injury is most of the crew from the McGuire Law Firm. Ian McGuire, first off. Also next to you, we have Tiffany Buffkin. And welcome back to Brittany Jones.
Thank you so much. Glad to be back.
Like I said, personal injury is going to be our topic here today. That envelops a lot of different things, from car accidents, trip and fall, slip and fall, maybe if you've been hurt at work. All of that stuff is fair game here today, so feel free to give us a call. Phone number is on your screen, 843-848-8080. We'll be happy to talk to you and give you answers to the questions you have.
Yeah, and encompasses, of course, everything from auto wrecks to nursing home cases to inappropriate security where somebody's assaulted right on the premises. So, any of those things, yeah, give us a call and we can talk about it.
A couple of weeks ago, we kind of had a personal injury / summer safety show, but a lot of that still is valid here today as we're getting into the extreme heat with the 4th of July coming up this weekend. So a lot of people are going to be in the water, going to be at pools, at the beach. Now, obviously, that brings up a lot of safety questions, and if somebody gets hurt on like a resort pool or maybe your neighbor's pool, or maybe if you're at the beach, do lifeguards, do cities and municipalities have the requirement or do they need to be keeping you safe at the beach if you go into the beach?
Well, with lifeguards, there's really, once an establishment has kind of undertaken the duty to provide lifeguard services, then you definitely can have a case against the establishment, like a resort, if the lifeguard is negligent.
But whether or not they're required to provide a lifeguard is kind of a different question, right? So, any of these places with public pools that are open to whether it's guests or whomever, they have a duty to make it safe. What all that might include, is going to be what's reasonable for that premises. So that might look different depending on the pool that you're at.
If you're lucky enough to have your own private pool, I mean, the temperature is going to be like bathwater over the next couple of weeks, the way it looks. But what kind of safety measures do you have to put in place to keep the kids in the neighborhood safe from your private pool?
Yeah, so definitely putting up a structure to close off your pool, whether it's a fence or a gate. That's called an attractive nuisance. So if you have your pool open and a child comes on your property and gets hurt, then you can be liable for that. So if you have a pool in your backyard, and most of the time you're going to have either an enclosure or a fence, but taking extra measures to make sure that the fence is closed or that your enclosure is actually shut. So that a child can't wander onto your property unsupervised and get injured.
Right. Now, we have had a couple of cases within the state of South Carolina where somebody's been on the beach and a big gust of wind will come up and bring some umbrellas, and umbrellas are pointy at both ends. So we've seen some injuries that happen with that. Who would be responsible for an accident like that?
Yeah, so in that situation, certainly if it is a company who is renting out the umbrella, such as a lifeguard beach service company, then they can be held liable for not properly installing the umbrella, for not properly securing the umbrella. And then you also could have a claim against the manufacturer if there's a defect or a manufacturing design error in the umbrella, and against the city in some circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we spent the past couple of years as a firm, fighting to see change in that area. We've gone to Washington, D.C. We really are trying to make it apparent to everyone the need for any time there's umbrellas, they need to be weighed down.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be weaponized. There's literally no reason to have these pointed ends that can impale people, because we've seen deaths, we've seen very significant injuries, and there's going to be more, and unless we make these necessary changes, and they're simple changes, right? They really are. So I really urge people to become aware of the danger that has occurred because of these umbrellas, and like I said, the change is simple. Mm-hmm. They just need to be weighed down. No matter how far they go down in the sand, if there's no weight to them, there's a risk that they're going to come up. So, it just always reminds me of the old days when they used to talk about lawn darts, and now we would never think that was a good idea, and I know the day is going to come where we're going to say that was crazy that we just didn't take these simple steps. So we're trying to accelerate that process as much as we can to see the change occurs before anybody else, a child, or it gets severely injured or killed. Because if there's not change, it will happen again.
Yeah. And the cost to the companies who are manufacturing and producing these umbrellas and the companies who are actually installing beach umbrellas is a nominal cost. Like Ian said, it's a very simple fix to make sure that the umbrella is secured and anchored properly, especially in comparison to how significant the injuries are to people whenever an umbrella does become airborne, and because it generally results in very significant injuries and death. And in the patio context, you would never think about putting up an umbrella without a weight. So the fact that on the beach we're allowing umbrellas to just be dug into the sand whenever that's not an appropriate measure to keep the umbrella from becoming wind blown is, we're hoping to see change. And I think we've seen a lot of change in that area thus far.
And I think it's something that maybe sounds, as someone who grew up here and has gone to the beach my whole life, the first thought of beach umbrellas are unsafe sounds a little bit kind of out there maybe. But I think just like both Tiffany and Ian were saying, once you weigh the possible injury that has already happened to many people, the devastating injuries or death that these things can cause, versus the simple way, and that's why there are so many other things on the market, right? Besides just a basic beach umbrella, then it becomes more and more obvious that why do we still have these things?
Yeah.
Why are these out there at all anymore? And like Ian said, it's going to be, there will come a time where that's not what you see up and down the beach. A basic umbrella is not going to be what's
and umbrellas, we have no problem with umbrellas because
As long
people
as they're
need
not
to be
weighted.
shaded and all that, but it's just the process of having those umbrellas with some weight to make sure that
stick them in the sand is not
they don't get
weighted.
weaponized. Yeah, exactly.
Personal injury is our topic here today. The phone number is on your screen if you have any questions about any kind of personal injury case, whether it's an automobile accident, a slip and fall, trip and fall, if you've been hurt on the job, any of that's all fair game here today. Give us a call at 848-8080. At the beginning of the show, Ian, you mentioned about security. And I mean, when you're on somebody else's premises, if it's a business of any kind, what kind of security do they need to offer to you and the rest of their customers?
Yeah, and like a lot of things when it comes to the law, it depends, right?
Yeah.
But it certainly depends, and the word reasonable always comes to mind, and because that is essentially the standard. But if you're in an area where there's a higher crime rate, there's past evidence of assaults and dangerous criminal activities going on, then the duty is raised, right? There's more of a responsibility. The more money you're making on your premises, I would think the more responsibility, the more people coming on your premises, the more responsibility there should be to make sure that that it's a safe environment, right?
Yes, yeah. And then once, the same thing with the lifeguard question earlier, once an establishment undertakes the duty to provide security, then they have a duty to make sure that the security is adequate.
Right. So do they need to put up CCTV cameras or have an actual security guard out there to make sure that you're safe in their parking lot or within their stores?
Again, it really does.
Yeah.
It depend. It's not. It wouldn't be fair of me to say they absolutely should do this and do that. But it really is a case by case basis. But security cameras are a very cheap and reasonable way, and they're a start. They're not going to prevent, maybe, but they might encourage people that might commit a criminal offense not to do it if they see the cameras. So in that respect, they're helpful. So I would say the cameras are a start.
Yeah. Tell you what, we're going to run to a break here real quick. When we get back, we'd love to talk to you about personal injury. If you have any questions about car accidents, slip and fall accidents, trip and falls, or if you've been hurt on the job, that's all fair game here today. Give us a call. Numbers on your screen, 843-848-8080. It's Legal Access, brought to you by the McGuire Law Firm. Welcome back. It is Legal Access, brought to you by the McGuire Law Firm, and here on the panel is most of the McGuire Law Firm to answer your questions. Ian McGuire, also Tiffany Bufkin and Brittany Jones. So give us a call. We'll be able to answer any question you might have today. Now, as far as if somebody was hurt, I mean, there's a lot of people who are reluctant to maybe come forward when an accident happens because they don't want to be, I don't want to be that guy. But I mean, if somebody was injured and then maybe a year and a half, 2 years later, they come back and say, you know, this injury that I got really hasn't healed. Maybe I should look at, filing a suit. If it's later on, if it's not immediate, how does that affect somebody's case?
Yeah, so I mean, based on the circumstances, usually that would still be okay. Certainly there are some circumstances where the statute of limitations and the amount of time you have to file a lawsuit might be shortened. But let's say it's under 2 years, say it's a year later, usually that is going to be okay. Now there's reasons why we certainly think you ought to come in as soon as the accident happened or as quickly in time as is possible after that for a number of good reasons. But certainly if you're in a situation where you didn't do that right away and now you're having questions, it definitely does not hurt to still seek out a personal injury attorney, ask questions, find out if you do have a case or if there's something else that can be done. And usually there is, that's something that even if it's later in the game, we can still get involved in and certainly help, whatever the scenario is.
And earlier when I was asking that question, I said, I don't want to be that guy. I mean, when somebody comes to you and says, I don't want to be that guy and follows suit, how do you respond to them?
I truly mean this. Whenever I was in law school, you kind of learned about all the public policy reasons why filing lawsuits actually is a good thing. And I truly believe that if someone is negligent and you are injured, you're not being that guy, or there shouldn't be this negative association with filing a lawsuit, because whenever you file a lawsuit, our system is set up to where the only thing you can do is ask for a monetary award in a civil action, but there is a rippling effect where businesses, homeowners, everyone is really encouraged to render the utmost care to their guests, to their the patrons who are frequenting their businesses, because they don't want to be sued, and if a business owner is running their business negligently, it makes sense to be able to file a suit against them, and it really encourages that establishment and other establishments to operate their business in a way that they're not acting in a dangerous way, or they're not, unreasonably allowing conditions that are going to cause injury to the patrons of their business. So really, filing a lawsuit is in the interest, there's public policy reasons why that is actually a benefit to society to be able to do that.
And that's how
the counter. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the counter will be, that's why frivolous lawsuits get filed, and there's steps that can be taken when frivolous lawsuits, and the ultimate is a jury that's going to roll their eyes, and you get 12 people from the community, but there's steps where it won't, preventative things that will keep it from even getting to a jury if it's frivolous. And actually, there's a lot of things that would discourage frivolous suits. I mean, I don't see any point in filing a frivolous suit unless there's some true justification for filing it. Does it happen? Okay, sure, but I think it's extremely rare where it happens and where it somehow proceeds to a jury. And like I said, even if it does, we trust the members of our community to render the right decision in those cases.
And I think that a lot of the frivolous lawsuits that we hear about, that it's kind of shocking, like you'll see a news article that, you know, a woman got millions of dollars for a hot cup of coffee, right? If you, of course, with the media, they're trying to get you to click on it and to make it seem shocking.
Yeah.
But a lot of the lawsuits, if you actually look into it, you'll say, oh, okay, like that, you know, the establishment knew that the coffee pot was, you know, was malfunctioning and it was too hot and that the cups weren't adequate. So I think usually, I always believe that the jury, for the most part, the juror members get the verdict correct. And so a lot of the frivolous lawsuits, if you look into it, there's actually a legitimate claim.
Yeah, and you talked about the McDonald's case. I don't know if I even told you, but years ago I was at a conference and they had the judge from the McDonald's case, the lawyers, you know, Mrs. Lane, she wasn't there, but she had been an elderly woman. But her, you know, when you heard all the facts in that case, it wasn't ridiculous. It wasn't frivolous. It was, and
Her injuries were
in fact, the jury verdict got lowered by the Court of Appeals, but it was still, you know, it was still somewhat significant. But you know, McDonald's had been warned a number of times, and her injuries were horrific. They were really bad. So, you know, but you don't hear all that.
No.
I was even really surprised at all the details of that case. So if you ever have time and you want to look it up, it's actually pretty interesting. But I mean, that for decades that was used by the insurance companies, you know, in their tort reform, that case, and it's ironically it really was not a frivolous case.
Well, and this is, you know, just like we were talking about a minute ago, this is kind of how we as a society keep each other accountable. You know, if there hadn't been that case, you know, would McDonald's or other businesses be serving coffee that's 1,000,000 degrees and we're all burning our faces off, you know, every time we take it?
I can guarantee you that McDonald's took steps to fix the issue
as a result
that they knew
of
about.
And so if we're not bringing lawsuits, if we're not filing them, if, you know, if everyone doesn't want to be that guy, then we're not holding each other accountable. We're not, you know, kind of promoting being the best version of ourselves as a society. That's like the
and what McDonald paid on that case is probably what a cup of coffee would be to all of us. You know, so it's you know, it just you know, it's easy. It probably sounds you know, comfortable for us to be saying this and convenient for us to be saying it as well. But it really is, I believe wholeheartedly what you know, Tiffany and Brittany are saying. It really does keep a check on society and keep our community safe.
Tell you what, we're going to run to another break here real quick. When we get back, we'll have plenty of time left, at least 10 minutes or so to get you on the air here. If you have any questions about any personal injury case that either specifically you have or maybe in general, if you have any questions, give us a call. We'd love to get you on the air here. It's Legal Access, brought to you by the McGuire Law Firm. It's Legal Access, brought to you by the McGuire Law Firm. Still got a little under 10 minutes if you'd like to give us a call and get on the air about personal injury, which is our topic here today. The other point is that if you do have a case or a potential case and want to know if you should move forward, make sure and call a personal injury attorney, because consultations are free. So pick up the phone and call somebody, or you can stop by the McGuire Law Firm offices. There's a free book available called Common Mistakes Made by Accident Victims in South Carolina. Again, it's absolutely free. Your offices are at 1600 North Oak Street in Myrtle Beach, or go online to McGuireLawFirm.com and you can download a copy of the book there as well. So again, don't wonder whether or not you have a case. Call somebody and find out for yourself. Now, at the beginning of the show, Ian, you mentioned nursing homes. What are some of the earmarks that you might have something to move forward with as far as nursing home neglect or abuse?
Yeah, well, the thing about nursing homes, unfortunately, the workers seem to be overworked and underpaid in a lot of cases, and you have patients who are not in a position to advocate for themselves on a daily basis, so and actually need more help than the average human being would. So you combine all that, and abuse and negligence is I won't say rampant, but it seems to be occurring at a pretty high level of, unfortunately, and it's really incumbent on the family members to be there and be advocates for their family members that are in these nursing homes. There's a lot of wonderful people that work and run nursing homes. Unfortunately, there are that small number that allow abuse and misconduct to occur. If you have questions, it's important to sit down with an attorney. They are usually cases end up in litigation because in those type of cases you have to hire an expert to demonstrate the standard of care was breached, right? So somewhat like the professional negligence and med mal and those kind of things. So it's important to sit down with an attorney if you have a family member in that situation where there's bed sores or other kinds of abuse. It's at least sit down with an attorney and find out what your rights are, right? Because some of the most horrific cases that we've represented families on over the years have been in nursing home cases, and I can't stress enough, there's a lot of wonderful people that are involved in nursing homes, and they're certainly necessary as our society ages the way we're aging, but at the same time there needs to be, as Tiffany alluded to earlier, the checks and balances and making sure that people are treated like human beings and with the respect that they deserve.
Yes, yeah.
Now, as a personal injury firm, somebody might give you a call and say, hey, listen, my person wasn't injured, but I had injury to my character because of being libeled or slandered. Is that any kind of a case?
I mean, it can be.
It certainly could be, yeah. I mean, that's, kind of as you said, it's not an injury to your person, but maybe an injury to your character, so that's going to be handled a little bit differently.
And there's a slander per se statute where, if it, and there's certain criteria if it affects you with work, with different things where there's potential for a case. They are, and they should be. They're not simple cases to every time somebody says something about somebody, it's not going to end up in a lawsuit and with a recovery. But there are certainly times where reputation is damaged and through falsehoods and misstatements and there are attorneys that handle those cases, specifically handle those cases, and it's important that they are prosecuted, right?
All right, we got just about a minute left, so let's go ahead and say goodbye for today. Remember, next week when we get together, we're going to be talking about family law. So if you have any questions about divorce, separations, even adoptions, that's going to be next week. So you can email us in advance if you'd like to, legalaccess@WMBFnews.com. But remember, if you have any questions about your potential case as far as personal injury is concerned, go ahead and give a call to a personal injury firm because you can get a free consultation. And you can stop by the McGuire Law Firm offices and get your free book to tell you what you should and should not do if you have been hurt in an accident in the state of South Carolina. Again, thanks for watching. Thanks to Ian McGuire, Tiffany Buffkin, Brittany Jones from the McGuire Law Firm. I'm Dave Priest. I will see you next Thursday. Family law is our topic then.
You may wish to consult a lawyer to obtain case-specific legal advice. Information regarding lawyers can be located online or by contacting the South Carolina Bar Lawyer Referral Service, toll-free at 1-800-868-2284. If you are currently represented by an attorney, you should direct all legal questions to your attorney. The nature of any legal issue may depend on a multitude of factors. Therefore, the information provided in this program